2 of the show here on your Monday. Good to have you with us. Matt and Patrick here, 952-946-6205. Obviously, if you look at the scope of news stories, the number one story in this town and in this state over the last weekend was the Timberwolves story. Coming in at number 2 would probably be the end of session, and there's obviously some things there. But there's a story that happened that kind of got lost that Michael Brodkorb was catching. And this is insane. It has to do with Royce White being the candidate for the Republicans to take on Amy Klobuchar. And Michael Brodkorb is kind enough to join us today to talk about all the things that happened this weekend and what could be one of the worst candidates in the history of politics. Michael, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
It's great to be here today, Matt. Thank you.
My pleasure. And as well, I should want to make sure we mention the podcast, The Breakdown with Brodkorb and Becky. That is available at your favorite podcast place. Go catch that. And The Girls Are Gone. If you still haven't read that book, you need to read that book. It's absolutely sensational. So the first sign of something was weird was a post you made on Saturday, which is said it was like 1:45 in the morning. You took a phone call from a group of Minnesota GOP activists who are frustrated because of the actions of Jennifer DeJarnette. Now, I know Jennifer DeJarnette, she was with the Three Rivers Park system, if I'm not mistaken. What's her position with the GOP?
She's just an activist with the party, and the frustration was the changing of the changing of the timing of the U.S. Senate endorsement, because the party is organizing these events and they're having these events set up, but the timing of the endorsement process was moved up, which allowed for the unfortunate events which happened on Saturday, because the endorsement for U.S. Senate was supposed to be near the end of the day, allowing, I think, the point from some of the folks that I've spoken to, allowing some time for some people to mobilize and do some time on the floor maneuvering, which happens at a lot of conventions, Matt, DFL and Republican. There's deals, there's arms twisting, but the moving up of the endorsement allowed for Royce White to be endorsed very quickly in the day on Saturday, which was a very frustrating development.
Now, there was another candidate that was running. It's a businessman out in the West Metro. He's been running. I at least I've seen some things about him. I had no idea Royce White was running. I mean, what happened to that guy? Is there just a backlash against him within the GOP right now?
I'm not sure. I mean, and I don't, interest in disclosure, don't work with either of the campaigns and have no involvement in the process, but just observing. What I think it was this. I think that Royce White, showed up on Saturday. He had a video speech from Steve Bannon, which is, that's red meat to the activists inside the party in that MAGA crowd. And he was also nominated by Darren Rocha, a former regent at the University of Minnesota. And so it was a really kind of bizarre process, and Royce White was able to come in and get 67% of the vote on the first ballot, which was a strong first place endorsement for him. I will say, I think, and I've been critical of the party in the past, and your listeners know, I didn't vote for Trump in 16 and 20, and won't be voting for him this time around. But I just want to say that, Friday the former president came to town. That was a good event for the Republican Party. It was well organized, well done. There was a sense of teamwork in that room on Friday night. Saturday, some of that unfortunately could get undone because of the endorsement of Royce White. And, I think the party did a good job running the convention, but the activists who endorsed Royce White, that's a problem. And, for anyone to think that he's a credible candidate for the United States Senate, or that he has the temperament and judgment to run for the United States Senate, boy, I would encourage you to spend some time on social media looking at some of his content and some of the hateful rhetoric that's spewed from his mouth and from his keyboard.
You and I have talked about that, and let's just talk about the process here. Republicans are in a situation, they're taking on a very popular Amy Klobuchar in the Senate race. You're also, Trump, this is a state that has not gone for Trump. I'm not seeing anything that kind of implies this. So it's very important, I think, that the Senate candidate you have is something that kind of at least gets people out, because it's not just the Senate race. It's the down ticket race, the House races that need help here. I could think of someone like a Kurt Dowd. I could think of someone like a Paul Gazelka, even someone like a Michelle Tafoya. I'm not saying that those guys wouldn't win. I do feel as if, though they would at least keep the donations coming in, they'd be able to support the House candidate races. This Royce White, I mean, we're going to get into this because this is 1,000 pounds of ugly. Was DeJarnette, is she just, do you think she was part of this trying to get Royce White in, or is it just because of bad management it happened?
I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is that that set off a series of events that led to Royce White's endorsement, and it's frustration and it's problematic. I think anyone who was at that convention on Saturday, that again, job of the party is to kind of be like the NFL and kind of set up the games. It's not their job to be on the field. Anyone who helped facilitate the endorsement of Royce White, or who helped support, allowed for Royce White by voting for him, they have some explaining to do, because the activists in the seat and those who made motions to facilitate his endorsement have some questions that need to be asked of them, because I think that Minnesota is really going to see some ugliness, and they started to. And I fundamentally believe, Matt, and you and I have spoken about this. Senator Klobuchar is in a very, very strong position for re-election, and one of the things that you and I have discussed is the need for there to be good discussions. We both want this state to succeed. We both want this country to succeed, and you and I may approach it differently. But to think that this Senate race, an opportunity for ideas and discussions and debate, is going to be occupied and be filled by someone who's going to throw the type of vitriol and hatred that Royce White has already started to do is just appalling. Yeah. And anyone at the convention who supported him, and anyone at the convention who facilitated his getting the endorsement in terms of moving agendas item up and stuff, needs to really have an appreciation and understanding as to how ugly this race to the United States Senate is going to be, and it's just going to be shameful, and it shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening.
Will there be a primary, to your knowledge? I mean, will there actually go to a primary vote, or I love this post you made. In only 6 hours, in that time, Royce White called you a dumbass, a punk, a moron. He's challenged me to a debate and told me to shut my mouth. That's within 6 hours of this. He's already coming out and attacking you. This is a Senate candidate, mind you. Did the other candidates withdraw?
Funny story on that. My wife saw it on social media. She goes, Michael, I'm probably gonna vote for Klobuchar as I have in the past, but I kind of like this guy's platform. He's coming out swinging at you. It was a funny joke in her house. But in all seriousness, Matt, that type of levity, that type of lightheartedness, that's really, in looking more of kind of the ugliness that came out of Royce White over the weekend and what I've seen and heard, and what I've researched. This is ugliness. This is vulgarities. This is talking in very hateful, anti-Semitic, bigoted, sexist, just raw, blunt language. And here's the game that Royce White and his supporters are going to play. The game that they're going to play is if you're critical of that rhetoric, it's because you want to attack the messenger. If you don't, by saying that you're critical of that discussion point, he's going to be dismissive. And I've seen it played out. The bottom line is that this is a serious time, and we need serious leaders that are going to talk about these serious issues our countries are facing. And it's simply inconceivable to think that Royce White is going to elevate the Senate race, that he's going to attract Republican candidates, that he's going to attract Republican votes, that he's going to help be a team player to the rest of the ticket. And that's where the Republicans that supported him, that helped him get endorsed on Saturday, really did nothing but cut off their arms and really hurt themselves in this race, because Royce White is incredibly combustible and problematic.
I'm going to ask this, and you can tell me I'm wrong or anything like this. I'm going to ask this. Are the people that are supporting him of the mindset, because he's got an extensive criminal record. He has no money in the bank. He has a social media trail of hateful, really, for everyone out there, think of the ugliest social media comments. This guy's got them all over the place. Is this a case where the people that championed him have this false mentality, which we've seen play out before, that if we just bring in a minority candidate, well, that means all the minorities are going to vote for him. It's over. It's a slam dunk. It's case. Is it that kind of a flawed mentality here, do you think?
Here's what I've heard from a number of people who were involved in helping some of the folks that supported him on Saturday. They thought, well, Republicans aren't going to win this race for the United States Senate, so why not throw a curveball into the race.
Wow.
And that's what they've done. And so I think now they're sitting back and saying to themselves, what did we do? And so the problem here is this, is that Republicans, it's a real interesting dynamic, because Friday's event was very unifying, I think, for the Republicans, which is surprising because it was Donald Trump. And as you know, I've been a Trump critic. But what I saw from social media and watching that event from my home, what I saw, people were energized and excited. That's what Republicans needed. And I think what Royce White's candidacy is going to do is going to divide Republicans, unfortunately. And it's not going to be value added for Republicans who are trying to win in the suburbs. It's not going to be value added for the Republican ticket statewide, because the rhetoric that this man has spewed, the hatred that he espouses, the raw bigotry and sexist commentary and language, he is going to be unhinged, and he is combustible. And I was describing it to someone earlier today. Republicans just threw a bunch of stick of dynamites in the back seat, and they now expect the voters to drive around with them over the next few months. And Royce White is going to be a train wreck. And I hope that there is a Republican candidate out there who will run in the primary. And that's not, Matt, because I think that Senator Klobuchar deserves to lose re-election, or because she doesn't represent Minnesota. Because elections and campaigns are about opportunities for contrast and ideas, and good ideas will come out of that. It's American, it's apple pie, it's what our state needs. And Royce White is going to be a distraction from that. Wow. And I think that a different type of Republican who was more centered, had more depth, was less combustible, less volatile, less prone to acting in such derogatory and disrespectful ways, I think would better elevate the Republican message. And so that's the missed opportunity, I think.
To my knowledge, he had $10,000 in the bank, but he also had $5,000 worth of debt. So he's got $5,000. It's late May, and he's got $5,000 to go against Amy Klobuchar. I don't know if that's going to pan out for him. His criminal problems, what are most of those? I mean, is it small things? Is it large things? What does his criminal record say?
Well, he's got some. Some of the things of interest. There's stole a laptop. There was a charge of a laptop related to in 2009 that's been floating around on social media. That's interesting because Republicans have brought up Senator Mitchell and what's going on with her so convincingly. So Royce White may have some type of somewhat comparable issues. I don't believe they were felony level charges in his past. But what he does have is he's got some current issues related to back child support, pending matters. He's as of today, he is constructively in contempt of court for failing to pay back child support. And so there's a number of those issues. I think there's problems that have been brought up before about his FEC reports and how he's used previous FEC funding. There was questions about some of his funding and how he spent his money related to his congressional race when he ran for Congress in the 5th before, and he was unsuccessful in getting endorsed. And so I think there's a pattern with Royce White of wherever he goes, there's a little bit of controversy, and there's problems that are there. And the question is this actually a campaign for the United States Senate, or is this some type of grift that's going to happen here? Because to date, Royce White has not shown an ability to organize and fundraise any type of credible campaign operation without drawing additional scrutiny. And I think Royce White has problems in he has past legal issues that are problematic. He's got current legal issues that are problematic. I can't imagine, though, what's going to happen over the next 100-plus days, 160-some, 170-some days before the election, and what is going to unfold in this race, because this is not someone who is reacting well to the pressure and the scrutiny that's going to happen. Matt, let's be honest. I've never been, and people know me, I have never been one to pull a punch in a partisan campaign. No one would ever conceivably ever say that I'm a softie or that I'm not comfortable throwing or taking a punch. This is not the type of normal back and forth jockeying that happens on campaign. This is ugliness. Mm-hmm. This is ugliness and hatred and bigotry spewed at every conceivable person that you can think of. And there's not a brush he doesn't, there's not someone who isn't smeared with the rhetoric that he throws out there and that he paints on people. And if you challenge that, what I've seen so far is defensiveness. I've seen ugliness in response. And this is what Minnesotans are going to see over the coming weeks and months. Republicans don't deserve it. Voters don't deserve it. Senator Klobuchar doesn't deserve it. And so my hope is that there's a Republican alternative that comes forward that challenges Royce White in the primary. The filing period starts tomorrow. Absent that, if Royce White is the candidate against Senator Klobuchar, I think she's going to win by incredibly comfortable margins. And I think she's probably going to get a wide section of Republicans that will cross over and vote for her, as they've done in the past, because Republicans, I think, are going to want to distance themselves as much as they can from the ugliness of Royce White and the rhetoric that he's spewing.
Yeah, Klobuchar is actually quite popular in a lot of Republican districts, so it's a tough get anyway. But still, you got to look at the political game. There is, of his comments on social media, misogyny, homophobia, but one of the most ugly ones is his anti-Semitic stances. And people have called out. I mean, and what is interesting is right now Republicans are trying to point out the difference between them and the Democrats in regards to Israel. And now all of a sudden, one of your main candidates has got a long record of anti-Semitic comments online. So I mean, it's perplexing beyond perplexing. But I think you're right. I think what you've learned. I think they are planning on running him because if they're going to lose anyway, you might as well run with the most extremist candidate and just appeal to the far-right extremist base.
And Matt, I got to tell you something. Maybe I've just gotten older and a little bit more. I don't think I've gotten softer, but I've certainly gotten more sentimental. And I just don't think that's good for our state. I believe in balance. I'm obviously a Republican. I believe in the gamesmanship and the partisanship that goes on in a campaign, but this is something entirely different. This is hatred. This is hatred, and it's platforming widespread conspiracies, and someone that I honestly don't know is ready for the scrutiny that comes with the campaign. What I've seen on social media, the sophomore, junior, childish responses, that's not someone who's interested in a thoughtful debate, who is interested in having thoughtful discussions. Again, Matt, what Republicans need to understand is successful campaigns and successful politics is about addition. It's about addition and multiplication. It's not about subtraction and division. And I'm just at a loss to figure out how Royce White and his Alex Jones style of politics is going to break the code and is going to break the code for Republicans in solving why they haven't won a statewide race since 2006. Wow. I do not believe that Alex Jones politics is needed in Minnesota, and the Steve Bannon and Alex Joneses of the world, I don't think are needed to tell Republicans how they should win in Minnesota.
You and I, we don't agree upon politics. On a few things, sure, but on most things we don't agree with. But you and I come from an age where we would try to find the things what we do have common ground on and build policy off of that, making compromise and getting, kind of negotiations as you go through. I dream of those days because you're right. This is one of these people, one of these candidates in this new mentality, which is basically, it's not about compromise. It's about trying to jam something down someone's throat. And it's just hard because I dream of the day in politics where, people could actually sit down like you and I have talked politics and we could have a decent discussion about it. And it's not just this howler monkey exhibit where basically people point at their droppings and say, you have to like it. And it's like, this is insanity.
Yes. And Matt, I will say to you, I reject the premise that anything Royce White is spewing is Republican or the natural discourse or the back and forth of campaigns. And I get that. Royce White and his supporters are gonna go out there and they'll probably call me a rhino and call me names or call me all these types of things that I'm part of the problem. I'm not going to be gaslit by him or any of his supporters. I have a good understanding of Minnesota politics, and I have faith that the wisdom of the voters is going to be shown and that Royce White is going to be rejected handily by Senator Klobuchar and the voters of his state. I'm not going to support him. I'm not going to vote for him. And I think what's just going to be sad is that who's going to lose in this process is going to be the voters. Because, again, serious problems, serious issues. There are so many good Republicans in this state. Republicans that I don't agree with on all issues, that are more conservative than me, that speak to issues differently than I do. This isn't about having there be a candidate that exactly I espouse. That doesn't exist in the world that we live in right now. But to think that we have to flip the dial so hard and go this to the right. Who this helps out Royce White. It helps out the grifters that are going to support his campaign. It helps Alex Jones in pushing his conspiracy theories. It helps Steve Bannon. But it does not help Republicans like David Hand, who want to run a political party. It doesn't help Republicans at the legislature. It doesn't help in any conceivable way. It doesn't help in any way. And I think that's the challenge. I guess I'm just at a point where I feel comfortable saying that, and I hope that there is a principled conservative out there who wants to be a responsible voice and talk about issues that are important this cycle. If not, Minnesotans are going to miss out on an opportunity because Royce White is not going to be a positive contributor to any discussions in the race for U.S. Senate. And I think he's just terrible.
He's going to undercut any message Republicans have on these House races, and it's really going to there isn't going to be discussion. It's just basically, what do you have to say about this? What do you have to say about this? And that doesn't do any good for anyone. Michael Brodkorb, once again, the breakdown is the podcast. Go find the podcast wherever you can find. Michael, interesting stuff. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time, my friend.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and go Wolves. I think they're still in. Go Wolves.
Yes, here he is. Our Vikings expert has decided to come into the NBA talk. Thank you, Michael. I do appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. Come on back. I want to talk a little bit more about this before we get into some other issues. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Monday.